first time I've used that countdown. Hello and welcome to Decoding Your K9. I am your host, Ness Jones, and I hope everybody is enjoying the summit so far. We are on day 2 already, and we've had some amazing feedback already on the speakers from day 1. And one of them, who's with me right now, is Angela Ahern, and she is she's from South Africa, and she's from the BioKinetic K-9. Welcome, Angela. I have to say I love talking to you because we both do IGP sports, so it was quite fascinating hearing somebody from from your background talking about the stuff, because it's so easy to get involved in dog sports and not really think about the impact on your dog and all that sort of stuff. So, but welcome anyway. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, and so I've had some really good interest in what you had to say, and obviously we'll be talking about it in a broader sense, not just IGP, but that is the sport that you do. So that is, obviously probably where your passion is. But how we have got some questions which we'll go through shortly. But how important is it for a pet dog person to ensure that their dog is I don't know what's the right word, sound? Maybe that's not the word you would use, but
look, it's the same as the average person that is not involved in a big sporting event, and you're just there, you're looking after your family, you go to work. Average people like myself, if you don't go to gym, it's just that life is just that little bit less. We've seen so many examples and so much science behind the importance of some physical activity in your life. It's even, I think it was a thing that I saw with regards to Australian research, where they found that going to the gym, doing physical exercise, something with your body, is even more effective than some of the antidepressant medication that is out there for people that are suffering with depression. So that is how important it is. And if I even look at my dogs, as soon as they're doing just a little bit of exercise that I do with them in my home, it can be raining outside, but they're doing this little bit of exercise in the home, then the rest of the day they are walking on air and they are in a much better mood. So if you have your pet dog and you're doing something with them like a little bit of exercise, it's the equivalent of them going outside for a walk. They walk a little bit lighter, and you get to assess and watch your dog's body, so you prevent a lot of injuries, because they're also running around, slipping on tiles, all of those things.
Yeah, so important. Anybody watching this, feel free to write a question in the comments. We are going to go through some questions that have already come in. My dogs are being a bit silly here, but if you've got any questions, please let us know. But are you ready to maybe just dig into what we've got so far?
Sure.
Cool. Okay, so Kathy sent this through, and it is kind of split in two because that's how StreamYard does things, unfortunately. But Kathy says, after watching your wonderful talk yesterday, she says she's really worried that her dog could get a back problem. She talked about, she being you, Angela talked about building muscle and how it can pull on the spine and healing via scar tissue. Hang on. But then between the ages of 2 and 4, the dog has a problem. Very scary. Is this permanent? So, does that...
Okay, so Kathy, this is a really important question. And I love to see how you've interpreted the information, and that is also really important. When we're talking about the muscles pulling on the spine or pulling on the bone and then developing small injuries, when it comes to pulling on the spine, there's little bits of cartilage on the spine as well. So when we say pulling on the spine and causing scar tissue, your scar tissue in muscle only occurs when that muscle has been injured. When we say pulling on the spine or pulling on a bone, it's normally when the muscle and the fascia is all in a spasm, and you're not going to get as much scar tissue except on those flat bones, etc. But when your dog is injured, the most important thing that you can do, and I mentioned this in the soft tissue injury pull-out that you can get within the summit, if your dog is injured, go and see your physiotherapist noticed, because they have these wonderful modalities that reduce the scar tissue buildup that's happening with the dog. If you leave your dog and just let it, it's got a muscle injury, a torn muscle, not so much on the bone, but on the muscle, they are able to use lasers and various. I've seen some of the things that they do. That's not my field, but the amount of scar tissue that they reduce within the dog's injury is phenomenal. And then your dog has actually got a really good career going forward. But the when it comes to building up small pieces of scar tissue as you go along, that's why it's always important to check your dog, because you will see there's slight differences in gait, and then you can rest the dog and not build up on those injuries so that it actually becomes a full-blown injury, and then there's an issue. So always watch your dog, especially if you're doing sport and if you're doing things like agility or big physical sporting events, then watch your dog and watch out for those changes in gait. So we can see even with ourselves, if we tweak a muscle, we're not necessarily damaging something that we'll have a scar left with it. But if we continue on that muscle's quite resilient. If we continue breaking it down on those injuries or those weaker areas, then you build up the scar tissue. So it's where things go unnoticed and you're not addressing the dog when they've got a slight limp or they're uncomfortable. If you do see an injury, get the diagnosis, get them sorted out with the vet and then the physio, and then you continue with your strength work and your dog should be fine, because you'll always be able to see these things as you go along.
So it's not necessarily a big problem, unless there's an ongoing issue sort of thing.
It's not necessarily a big problem until it becomes a big problem. So it's always important to investigate the small things and not just ignore the dog. The biggest thing for me, what happened with me is I was just told my dog's being stubborn today. Don't worry about it. And when I work with dogs, I see them, all they want to do is they want to work. It's very rare that a dog is being stubborn today. So if they are not doing the things that they normally do, or there's a little bit of a hesitation with them within their body, just investigate a little bit further. Most of the times it's a little bit uncomfortable on that day. And the discomfort is not necessarily an injury, but like when I walk and I twist my ankle just ever so slightly because I went on a step incorrectly. It's not to say my ankle's damaged now, but I wouldn't go doing gym on that ankle that day. So if I give it a bit of rest and see how I go and watch how your dog moves, if a limp or discomfort persists, go and see the vet for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So Sharon asks, and these are people that wanted to be here for the live, but the time zones are so hard for everybody. I know, because you're in South Africa, I'm in Australia. There's people in Europe that are saying, well, it's going to be 3 a.m. my time. So it's really it's hard to get the right time for everyone. But Sharon says she would be interested in knowing what strengthening warm-up training she should be doing safely with a puppy, because she wants to do agility when he is old enough.
So puppies are always, I love them. They're always so keen. And especially if you want to be doing agility when they're old enough, there's lots of things that if you've got your good agility coaches out there, they will do a lot of agility type work, just like going through the jumps, not actually jumping, and they learn the skills. So everything is just about learning things about doing the do within the sport. So when it comes to things like weave poles and all that big, sharp, heavy work on the shoulders and the turns, the puppy's body can't really handle those type of things, but they can just experience walking through poles really slowly, etc. And that's how they get to learn the equipment and they get to learn things with their body. If you see puppies, they're running and they don't have the control of their bodies yet. They have to turn around in the house, exactly, the big knuckles, and they like as they're turning around the corner. So what you do with it when it comes to conditioning with a puppy is you just teach them how to use their body, how to step on a platform, how to step to the side, how to use their back end in certain things. So even if we're talking about pivoting around a small bowl that they're going to be standing on, nothing higher than the wrist, then and they've got to step sideways with their back legs. That's a big deal because their brain is thinking, it's like, oh my word, what am I going to do? And if they feel something that they've got to stand on at the back, they can't see. Most dogs can't see. And what are we stepping on now? They feel things. So all of these neuro messages going to the brain of, oh, what's happening with my back paw? They learn these things with their feet and with their body. So when, how to step on something and keep their balance. So all of these things are working within the body. And when we're going to go into sport, their body learns, oh, it knows how to do things with it. And then the same thing when it comes to warm-ups. So warm-ups, even with high competing dogs that are at a national level, the warm-up is always resembles the work that they are going to be doing in their sport. So if they're going to be doing jumps and we're going to do some rock back sits up onto a platform, or we're going to ask them to use their back legs and stretch them out. So even if with my dogs, I will ask them to put their paws on my chest and I'll give them, show them to come up in here. And I even scratch all the hair on their back just to get that feeling through their body to wake up the nerves. So even if I'm sitting now and scratch my thighs, you'll feel your thighs come alive, the blood will go there, etc. All of these type of things that you're going to be doing within the warm-up. So your warm-ups always represent or are as near as possible to the sport that you're going to be doing. And it's you always start with just a walk and then a little bit of a trot. Same as with humans, if you are just jogging about, the blood is going bloop in the body. And that's what you want to do with a puppy. If you're going to, for puppies, we don't actually ask them to do these big power moves that are fast and erratic. We want to do things a little bit more gently with their bodies. And if we are doing those gentle movements with their bodies, the same things is going to happen in the warm-ups. For dogs in sport, I get many people saying, oh my word, a warm-up, my dog is way too active, is too excited on the field to even do a warm-up. They just want to go. And to know this, it's always important to almost train a warm-up with your dog. So if I'm on the field with my dog and I just need to trot him around the field, we almost do it like lunging a horse. So they're on a longer line and we ask them to run. It's a training exercise. You got to teach. They don't just do it on their own. You got to teach them. Oh, just run at the end of the line in a circle and trot both directions. So your warm-ups for a lot of the sport dogs would drive and they want to go and do the work.
It's usually my dog, so don't worry.
So as when we do a warm-up, I've had to train my dogs to do the warm-up. So they're really excited they want to go. No, they got to just bring the drive down a little bit, do these exercises, and the faster you do these exercises slowly with me, the quicker we can go on the field. So we have the exact same principles with training for a warm-up as training for the sport. But when it comes to a puppy, it's gentle movements. In my program, we've got a list of exercises that we do for strength work, and I mark all the exercises that are suitable for a warm-up. We've also got a warm-up workshop, and it's just a easy to follow 2.5 hour workshop where we go through the various exercises on a list. You get a list of exercises and how it's a good way of performing a workshop that is going to be going for your sport. But when it comes to warming up puppies, it's super easy and gentle.
I'm going to just shut this door because my husband is in the other room with the TV blooming. I literally 1 second.
Well, this is where life happens in between your live chats.
Yes, I'm not impressed with him. So just before we go on to the next question, and again, anybody, if you have any questions, type them out now while we've got Angela here. But I have a question about the focus heel, because you and I do it in our sport, and it's, obviously it is done in a lot of sports, and you read comments every now and then saying, well, that's such an unnatural position for the dog's head to be in. So I guess the question is, what impacts can that have on the body, and how can we mitigate that?
Oh my word, that is such a good question. When we talk about the focus heel, I hear it as well. Oh, these dogs that do this, it's so unnatural. How can this dog even walk? And it is unnatural. It's the same as people that are marching. So if you're in the army and you have to march, nobody's walking, we're marching. and we're doing the movements. That's not how anybody marches. We use a lot of the muscles in the body just to march. So no, it's not a natural movement, but we're asking the dogs to do this for quite a long time. And a very interesting thing is when we have heads up work, and for Malinois, they generally look straight up, and German Shepherds look a little bit to the side.
Yeah, like that, yeah.
The skeletal differences in the dogs. But as soon as you lift the head up, these muscles disengage. So you think that you're getting a lot of strength in the back of the neck, etc. It's almost the opposite, because the muscles are really tight at the back of the neck. And if you look up, these trap muscles, these triangles behind the neck, it goes over the shoulders of the dog and into the lat muscles. These muscles over here on the back, they almost disengage. And the dogs with weaker backs, you'll get a slight dent on the top line. And these muscles are really important for the bite work, especially the long bite, when the dog is on the sleeve and they come around the sleeve, and then they've got to control that body, because the body can twist in the air. So the twisting happens from the neck and shoulders all the way down the entire spine. And these muscles, because they disengage in all of this heel work, or they become tight with all of the heel work, it compromises the effectiveness and the safety of the bites. So when we do our strengthening, we strengthen these muscles, and these muscles become stronger when the dog is in a neutral position. So if from the side, when I'm in a neutral position, for me to be natural and have my neck a little bit up and in line with my back, I have to actually hold it, and I can feel the top of my shoulders working, and that's why we slouch.
Oh, I'm a terrible sloucher. Oh, I like this a lot.
So, but if I have to go up and too far all the time, it's going to be too much, and then the front of the neck starts to stretch. And because these muscles, and they stretch from around the front to the top of the shoulder in a dog, and when they are really up, these muscles are stretched, and because they are more stretched and these are tight, the neck is a little bit weaker. So when we do our conditioning work, we work on those muscles by stretching these out, making them strong, and then contracting this so that they know how to contract and to control the head both sides. So we work on both sides. A lot of people will say, oh, can't we just heel on the right side a little bit with the dog? Won't that be a nice opposite to work with the opposite sides of the muscle? And it makes sense intuitively for us. It's the opposite side. But if I train my dog today with the exact same techniques that I know, and I take another dog and use those exact same techniques, the two dogs will work differently, because you're working with a dog and how they interpret your training. That's how they will work their body. How they interpret what you're asking of them, they will do their body. And if you do that on the right side, they may interpret these things a little bit more different. And so you may be addressing some of the muscles, but you're not addressing the hamstrings, because it's the exact same movement with the back of the dog, maybe going down, etc. You're not addressing the hamstrings, the tight core muscles. You may be just addressing some of the muscles in the neck. So it's super interesting. The higher up you ask your dog to lift his leg, the more these muscles will disengage. And I've seen it in a dog where we work on those issues, and the dog's bite is stronger. The drive through the power through the back legs, through the muscles of the back into the shoulders is much harder, and their strikes are much harder with the helper work. So all of these things, where we think we're making things stronger or less stronger, we may not be, and we may be causing some weaknesses just in our training. It's not a fault with the sport or the training. It's just that's how it is.
Yeah. Valerie just said, I just had to jump in the Facebook group to see who commented, because I can't see, but she says very interesting information about the muscles in the neck. So what about you see the dogs that do agility through the weaves, and they're like, shoo, shoo, shoo. How does that impact their bodies? Because I always look at them going, oh, I mean, I haven't ever done agility, but what those dogs that are really curving so rapidly through the weaves, is that what's the impact?
So if you think of, we want the dogs to be really fast. So with speed comes really tight contractions of the muscles. So the dogs are moving forward. The back legs, dogs power from the rear. So the back legs are really driving the dogs forward, and then they steer with the front legs. So when they're going through the weaves and they don't have good power and control of that power, that's so important. I'd like to equate with, if you have got a really fast car, you don't want to have the brakes of a entry level car.
No.
You want to have really powerful brakes to control the speed. You see it with dogs that are not fit. If they're running and they turn in the house and they turn and they slide, and they rather just bump in a wall to stop and then go. But out on the field, they don't have that wall to bump in, and you have to use your muscles to stop. So the faster your dog is, the stronger that dog has to be just to control the speed. Otherwise, that's too much. Like going over an A-frame of a jump, or in agility where the A-frame is not as steep in IGP, the dogs are over, they go over, fly over, and then they don't realize that the drop at the end. So they need to drop, and then the back end flips. Those type of things. So you want to have strong muscles for this to control the speed. And when you're going through the weave poles, so they're going to, if they don't have the power from the rear, or their core is weak, and they go through the weave poles, they're going to put a lot of strain on the shoulders for the direction, and they're going to drive through with the front legs because they don't have the power and the control from the rear. So there's extra strain on the front. If they have the power from the rear, and it's got to go through the core, then they can push from the back and just control with the front. But if they don't have that, and if you see these dogs go through the weave poles, the speed causes a lot of torque. So if I have to turn really fast, or if I'm on a merry-go-round, you can feel the pull on the body the faster you go. So that is the torque. So if your dog is going through and there's a lot of torque and twisting of the body, that means that the muscles must be strong enough to control the movements. Because if they don't control the movements, the back end flings around and overturns. You can see the curve of the spine goes too far, and then they've got to bring the spine back, and they use the poles. And I've heard of dogs even breaking those poles with the torque that's involved.
Wow.
Yeah, with the torque that's involved on the body. So they need to have that rear back control to control the torque on the spine as it goes through. That's the most important part of speed and the weave poles. When the dogs have got that control, then they control, and their body doesn't fly up too far on either end, and your weave poles become really, really neat. And I know you get weave pole competitions where there's a lot of poles, and the dog that gets through them the fastest is the winner. But it's a lot of demand on the body. So prepare the body to protect it.
Yeah, I'm getting kisses from my dog. Wendy, this is a question that came in earlier. She says, Angela mentioned, this is in your interview obviously, a day of rest needed after strengthening exercises. What would be an example of a good weekly schedule, including both strengthening and dog agility practice? Can both be done?
Yes, both can be done for sure. We see a lot of the top competitors in agility, they all do strengthening work and conditioning work with their dogs. That's why they're at the top of the game. So when it comes to IGP dogs, same thing. Your novice type of handler will try and do the sport almost every day. And the secret is not to do it every day, your sport. If you're going to be doing strength or conditioning work with your dog, then you're going to be substituting some of your training with the strengthening and conditioning work. So you're going to swap out some for the other. And the strength and conditioning work is preparing your dog for the training. So your training then becomes you just working on the skill set of your dog. So in IGP, the easiest way to explain this is asking your dog for that flip finish, and the dog's not coming around fast enough. So you asking them to do it, and they're trying. So the training becomes quite long and tedious because the dog's not getting there. But if you strengthen the body and you do the movements required in a flip finish, so that the dog knows, oh, well, I've got to use my backhand, I've got to move to the side, I've got to twist in my shoulders, hold my core. you practice all of that in the strength work. So now the core is strengthened, the adductors in the back legs are strengthened, the shoulders can hold the dog, and the dog knows how to turn and pivot to the side. So you go to your training and you do your flip finish. The flip finish comes and is successful a lot quicker. So your training for that flip finish decreases. The dog understands your training, and now you just keep the conditioning of that body going. So your training intensity and duration decreases, and you take that decrease and you put it in your strength work. And strength work is not a big time consuming event in any case. So I know a lot of people go to training and do.
She's actually cut off at the end of it. Can both be done on the same day, right? Sorry, I just thought I'd better add that in.
Okay. So yes, they can be done on the same day, but you will always do your conditioning work first. So some people train morning and evening. I'll say just take your morning session and do the conditioning work, and after that do your training, because the conditioning work works the muscles, and the muscles get tired. And if you're going to be if you're doing any cardio work, if you're going to go for a run and everything, or train and then come do conditioning, the muscles are too tired, because we're working those muscles in the big muscle groups. And you'll see the dogs, they get fatigued, they're tired, the muscles can't continue. So you always do your strength work beforehand, and then give your dog a rest, and then go to your training. And the drive helps your dog get through, etc. But the muscles have been worked. If you working your strength work and then say the rest the next day, rest means let your dog go sleep. Don't crate them. The muscles need to relax. The body needs to relax. The mind needs to relax, because conditioning work also uses a lot of mental focus. They've got to think about touching something with their back foot that they can't see where they need to be. So there's a lot of mental work that's happening. And so rest day for me is let your dog be a dog. Let them, okay, my dogs are in the house. Let them lie on the couch. Let them just relax. They'll be tired. If your dog can't relax, do some gentle walking. Go for a leisurely walk with your dog. Just let your dog be a dog. That's what the rest day is. They semi-self-regulate. If you're not around, oh, we're going to go train, then they really do. They just lounge around. So let your dog be a dog. I'm not saying like crate your dog for the day. No, let your dog be a dog, but let the body just relax. Let the mind relax, and let everything come together for that dog. When it comes to training schedules, depending on where you are in your sport, if you are top competitor, nothing less than 3 days a week, you need to do strength training, and you fit your other training in between those, making sure you have rest days for stretching and just being a dog. So if you are top competitors, 4 days a week is all you need. So we like to do, say, for example, Monday, Tuesday, rest Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, rest Saturday, Sunday. Some people will go tracking or do a little sport on the weekend. After that, rest the dog. Don't ask the dog to always work.
Yeah, sure. And Sheila, going back to the head position, she's saying, so are you saying the dorsal muscles disengage when the dog looks up in the focused heel?
Some of them do, yes. Not everything. So it's almost not that they completely disengage, but they become weaker. The easiest way I can describe it is in the sports that I know. So I know about weightlifting. So if somebody is going to do a clean and jerk, so they take the weight and they lift the weight up above the head, they can't look up. It weakens the whole back end of their spine and neck. So when they lift up the weight, they push their head forward and they brace all of these muscles. They make them tight. Same thing with the dog. If the dog is looking up, and the research is done with horses when they do various dressages and the height of the head, found that the muscles in just above the withers and at the beginning of the latissimus dorsi muscles, the big back muscles, they are not contracted. So these muscles really contract as soon as the dog takes its body in front of the front leg. So pushing the body forward, those muscles engage. When the front legs are in front of the dog, those muscles, they're not contracting, they're lengthening. The same thing with the head up. The muscles at the back, they are in the way, so they make space for the head to be up, and then the shoulders have to work. So they're not working correctly with the rest of the dog.
Sure,
so they disengage, they They're just not contracting properly for the strength work that is required in the marching.
Yeah, interesting. And Nicole says she's new. I am new to this and conditioning my dog. So this might be a silly question. There are no silly questions if you're thinking that someone else's. But what is the best way to start learning to condition my dogs? Definitely not a silly question. Very good question, actually. Staffies, they're Staffies, and they just started competing in lure coursing, I'm going to assume. No.
So with lure coursing, that is actually a power sport. If it is lure coursing, I'm also assuming it is. The dog has to run flat out, full power, pump those muscles. So it's you're looking at the Usain Bolts of the world, but just in a longer distance. And the dog has got to go flat out and in that full speed ahead, turn sharply as they follow the lure. So the muscles really need to be strong because the muscles are not pumping like this. They're pumping, they're grabbing the body to push the dog forward. So if you want to do some strength training for that, that is the best type of conditioning that you can do with this dog. Of course, there is cardio as well. But find a professional conditioning coach and a coach that is familiar with your sport, because each sport has got just slight variations on the body where the different muscles are used more often in certain sports, or they engage differently in different sports. For example, IGP dogs are more tight in the core, agility dogs are more flexible and stretchy in the core, and you have to address those areas just slightly different with the exercises that you do. The exercises are more or less very similar, but how you use them, that is sport dependent and also dog construction dependent. Some dogs are more angulated, some dogs are more straight in their bodies, and they've got different strengths and weaknesses within their muscles in the body. Just like no human is born perfect. I wish some of them were, but no. So find yourself a really good conditioning coach. There are some wonderful ones out there, and start right at the very beginning. Just like our course, it starts with foundation work. We explain why you're doing that exercise, what muscles it's working, and where it works in your sport. And I find this really important because if I am not told why I'm doing something with my dog, then I just don't do it.
I'm the same. Yeah. You can't just say don't do it. Like, why am I doing it? Like,
So
what is this going to achieve?
So if you're going to just be doing like a simple rock back sit, people don't do it because, oh, well, it's a puppy sit. The dog goes backwards and sits on its haunches. And it's like, oh, well, yes, my dog can sit, and they don't do it. But do it in a way where your starting position is in good posture. Your end position, you must know what parts of the dog must move. The back feet, in this case, mustn't move at all. And only the front feet are moving backwards so that the dog can sit. And how the dog finishes, and in that sit, and you stretch them up in the sit, it all works different muscles. And if the dog is doing it correctly, you are tackling the correct muscles. So in our course, we say, why are you doing something, where it is involved in your sport, because I want the person that looks at the exercise and goes, oh, well, this is really boring. It's not for the dog. Do the exercise. You'll see your dog may be able to do it once, but can they do it for 10 repetitions correctly? No, they get really tired. So even if your coach says to you, do this exercise, and you think, oh, that's not for me, do the exercise. And you'll see that there's amazing things that happens in your dog's body when you do them, and you see the benefit, everything that they in their general life. So to start, find a sport-specific conditioning coach. They must know your sport ideally, so that they can explain things to you when you say, but why must I do this? That's very important, because if you know why, then you can apply it to all of your dogs. And that knowledge of knowing why, that's gold. That stays with you forever.
Yeah. And Janine says that, yes, you loved this morning with all those cuddles and kisses. Yeah, this is Big Bertha. She was supposed to be an IGP dog, but she fractured her femur. But she does give the best cuddles and kisses, so she can track. She's done a BH, but that her career in the sport is over. So. But she is out of the three of them, she's the one that does the best cuddling. So
She's top level support dog.
yeah. Sorry, I pronounced that wrong. Is that Shella? I don't know. Shella. Anyway, I'm terribly sorry I pronounced it wrong. But the muscles that flex the neck are engaged. That's what creates the movement and holds the head in position. I'm not sure I understand how the lats are involved the way you're describing it in that.
Okay. So this is really important because people need to understand. So the muscles in the neck are flexed and engaged. Yes, they take it back, but they are then super flexed. So if I tip my head here, yes, they are starting to flex. If I go all the way back, they flex less because they need to make space for my head to be there. So yes, they do flex if I do it just a little bit. Too much, not as much flex. There is more pulling on the neck muscles, yes. But then if the muscles are tight all the time, they become short. So if this is the neck of the dog, these muscles then become really tight all the time, and now they're short. So if I need to bend forward, it's hard for that muscle to stretch all the way down and put the head down. So now they're up here, but all of these muscles underneath are stretched. So if they're very stretched, they're like this. They're floppy. So they can't contract really well to bring the head down. And when the dog is flying out and there's torque on the body, that when the body is flying and that pulling on the body as a dog goes out, these flexed muscles now have to stretch, and these stretched muscles have to contract to support the neck that's holding the head and the dog. And these muscles go all the way through the shoulders into the back. And where the lat muscles are involved, the back end of the dog, if this is the top line of the dog, if these muscles are weak or not engaging, then you'll see this in the top line. And then these muscles become stretched. You see it a lot of times in a pregnant dog that's had puppies. Their backs. Yes. So these muscles have had to support everything, and they're really, really tight. And these muscles have had to stretch because they make way for the puppies. And then when the puppies are born, these are still stretched. And so you have to make these tighter and relax these so that they can hold the spine strongly again. So I've seen dogs where the top line is not as strong. You'll see a little bit of a dip in the back end, and that's why you see there's an imbalance of muscle strength around the spine. And you need to have that strength both sides of the spine, especially in that long bite, to control the body as it's in the air. When the feet are not on the ground, the only thing to protect the spine is the muscles around the back, around the spine and in the core. So otherwise, the spine's out there on its own. So that those muscles need to contract and hold and control the torque of the dog as they're flying around on that long bite.
Right. And Janine says, no dog sport for us has had a spinal bleed.
Wow.
So even the simplest conditioning exercises are beneficial. Would you recommend face-to-face physio or online by video? Face-to-face can massage. However, I see some great online information. What are your thoughts?
Quite interesting. So face-to-face, where somebody needs to feel the muscle and feel where there are some muscle knots or tight areas of muscle, that's always handy, or how to massage a dog. So there's a lot of online massage principles so that you learn about what your dog feels like. So where there's a tight muscle, you learn what that muscle feels like. So you've done it, and especially I've done the myofascia stuff. You can feel when the fascia is pulling tight, or it feels like little beads, and you can feel like strands of guitar in that muscle. And you can also see it with the hair lying slightly different on the dog. When it comes to working conditioning exercises, a lot of these exercises can be done online. As long as your trainer can see the whole of the dog's body, so nose to tail and feet to ears, and a little bit of your body as well, so that we can see how you are presenting the treat to your dog. So easy example, if you're presenting your treat to the side every time, we do repetition. So your dog is just getting the treat to this side all the time. You are inadvertently working the one side of the dog. And even those small movements, I saw a piece of science come up where a lot of the physios are getting shoulder pain with runners. And it's like one shoulder is sore, and the person does long distance running, and it's mainly because they carry their cell phone on their arm or in their hand to listen to the music as they're running.
Yeah.
And those few grams of weight on a repetitive long distance run causes a little bit of extra wear in the shoulder.
Wow.
So if we are doing the same thing, even small, on a continuous basis, it will impact the dog. So when you're doing your conditioning via video or online, your experienced coach will say, I need to see this part of the dog, show me here. And it's easy. You just set up your cell phone and you upload it and send it through to them. But you'll be working in your house or in your back garden in a small area, and there you go. And they will be able to direct you exactly of what you're doing, how your dog is moving, what they're seeing. They're seeing this side is a little bit weaker than this. Change your exercise like this and do these type of exercises. So I do it myself. We work online. And it's,
yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I imagine you people that are watching this that want to do it can contact you.
most of my clients are overseas. So, and
Right. There you go.
So,
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate. Interesting. Yes, Shella. Sorry if I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. She says you're right. And a disclaimer. I used to teach anatomy. That's why she knows. Hadn't seen what you were indicating, so it seemed like something that's right. Cool. Who says hi from Austria? I don't know how to pronounce that. Silky, perhaps. Silky, Silke, says hi from Austria. And Janine says that's really helpful. So, guys, while we've still got Angela, make sure you type some questions. But I'll ask a question while hopefully somebody's typing. Parkour for dogs. What do you have any clients that do that? Because I know it's getting quite popular. So.
No, I don't have any parkour for dog clients, but that is really popular. There's a lot of jumping, there's a lot of accuracy involved with the dogs. But we do get some trick trainers.
Right.
And some of those trick training activities are quite difficult. So if you are doing those type of exercises with your dog, oh my word, yes, your strengthening and conditioning work for those dogs are important. A lot of people do it by default, and they encourage dogs to jump up here, jump up there, and then the dogs get really good on jumping and certain things and balancing in certain areas, and so they develop the dog. But it's important to look at what your dog's body looks like. Doesn't matter what you're doing with your dog, there's always a benefit. Watch what your dog's body looks like in various relaxed positions, and if those positions more often than not show a discomfort with a toe sticking out or something to that effect, investigate and work your dog's body. So parkour will be various things, jumping in different areas, different directions, and the dogs jump high, and there's nothing wrong with jumping. The problem is the landing. Nothing happens to the dog in the air, but the dog has got to hit the ground. And it's how they land that is the important part. So you want to make sure shoulders are strong, core and shock absorption of those areas are strong, because a dog with less angulation, for example, in the shoulders will have a harder jarring landing on the body than a dog that has got a little bit more angulation. So more angulation will give you shock absorption, but then you need the strong muscles to control that shock absorption, where straighter angles in the shoulder, for example, will cause harder jarring on the muscles.
Yeah. What about working dogs? The dogs that are on farms, and they're born on a farm. They're bred and born, and they go out to work all day with the farmer. They might be Kelpies or Border Collies here in Australia. Those farmers, they don't worry about doing strength conditioning with their dogs. It's just like, that's your life.
No, they don't. The dog, I would imagine, is very much like the farmer. They're out early in the morning, they're walking and they're working all day. and they got a generally okay body. Everything is fine. But also, if they do get injured, they just carry on. They're not doing anything for points. They've got to work and earn their living. Otherwise, things fall apart. And I'm sure that those dogs get looked after because they've got a job to do, and to train those dogs up takes time and effort, and the farmers don't have that time. They need to look after their workers that are helping them. And different dogs herd differently. So they'll be using different movements in their body. Like your German Shepherd will be running around the sheep, where your Border Collie will be.
That's kind of
Like this, yes. So there'll be different working areas with those dogs. If they get injured, they'll go to the vet. The vet will say, rest your dog, or whatever the case may be, they'll do it. If they are interested, yes, you can work the dog. They will always be better off. The same as if a farmer goes to the gym and then still does all his horse riding, etc. His body will be better off for it. So when I do sport dogs, the dogs need to go to gym. If you're working on a farm, you're better off going to the gym. If you are at home and you're just carrying on your usual life, you're better off going to the gym. Nobody can force you, though. But if you are taking your dog to sport, it's in your best interests if you go to the gym.
Yeah. Karen says, is it easy to recognize injuries when the dogs are doing the sport? I'm guessing dogs would just work through the pain. Yeah.
Your guess would be 100%. So with the sport comes adrenaline, of course. So the dogs, especially with protection work, there's adrenaline going. They feel nothing. That's the problem with the sport dogs. Is they show very little pain, but if you know how to look at them, you will see it. For sure. I've seen many dogs who they were on the field and go, this dog is uncomfortable here, there. And the problem is you can't unsee it. When you know how, you can't unsee it, and that's it. So dogs don't easily show pain, also depending on the temperament of the dog. But most working dogs that I see, they don't easily show pain. They want to do anything to please you, and they want to be out on the field, and they want to do what they do. They love it. But if you know what to look for, then you can spot those small discomforts in your dog. That's why we have the body checks for injury. It's a 5-minute check you do on your dog before you train, and after you train, you incorporate it in your cool down, so you can always see how is your dog doing after a big training session or trial.
That's great. Yeah. And I guess even like by the, maybe you're somewhere on a trial field or training field, and then you get home, I guess you can, even though it's out of the training context, you might see that the pain suddenly become more evident. When the dog's pottering around, perhaps.
Normally the pain will come after they've rested, and then they've got to get up, and then you'll see it for sure if it is an injury. But also, for example, with my own dog coming out of an injury, so interesting. Coming out of an injury, that muscle's healed, we're busy building up the strength, and it's not as strong, or hasn't got the stamina it had and with the rest of the body. And we did a big workshop, and I was testing this dog out. He was clear to go, and I've been watching him and everything else, and he handled the workshop really well. And then on day 4, on the very last session, we did the workshop, and you could see discomfort. And it's the same as when we got a weak muscle. Your muscle just spasms a little bit. You get a cramp, and that's just your weakness in your muscle. And if you walk it out, so I saw that the muscles are a little bit tight. We ended the session there. We walked him out in his cool down, and that muscle just started to relax. And so you know exactly when to stop and see, okay, my dog's had enough, walk it out. Is it something that I have to be more concerned with? And in the cool down, we see that, no, the dog's fine, the dog's walking, his body starts to relax, and you walk out of cramp. But if you had to continue training, then there would be other consequences more often than not.
Yeah. And Valerie says, and I'm just going to let this dog out while you answer this, but Valerie says, what exercises do you recommend for a dog that sits off to one side all the time? I'm assuming she means sitting on one hip. They can sit lovely and square, but will choose to sit sloppily most of the time. Rottweilers do that a lot. That's their thing.
So
Right.
dogs that sit to the side, like these puppy sits and they slouch on the one side, and if it's the one side all the time, then you're creating muscle memories for that. And it's the same with people that, for example, if I sit on the couch, I swing my legs out to the side, always in the same direction. And
Like
if
me
I go to
sitting like
the
this
gym,
all the time.
exactly. If I go to the gym, I notice that my hip mobility to this side is a little bit stiffer than this side. So if your dog is sitting that way all the time, obviously some muscles are getting lengthened, some muscles are staying short, and they just slouchy dogs. So they'll sit and you'll see their backs are a little bit more rounded because they're not sitting up at attention. We can all look very nice, but it takes work. For the muscles have to work to hold you up and have good posture. But when your muscles are strong, you will have automatically good posture. Take any dancer, take any ballet dancer. Oh my God, they walk around this
Oh,
graceful. That's just how they must
amazing.
are.
Yeah.
If I had to walk around like this all day, I'd be finished in an hour.
Same.
But they can do this all day. So if your dog is sitting sloppy, it's just that his muscles are not worked and he's not used to sitting up. And you can easily strengthen those muscles just to have a proper sit. So to put them in a proper sit and ask them to hold it, start off with ask them to hold it for 5 seconds and then build up that duration. And you can increase the strength of the muscles in the back of the spine, the muscles in the legs, because they've got to hold their legs tight. So their muscles have to work really hard to bring their legs in and not sit like this. They have to work it. So even if we're asking for a puppy to do a proper sit, we'll ask them to hold that sit for 2 to 5 seconds, done, because it's hard work. They've got little muscles. Shame. It's the same with the Sphinx down. They've got to hold themselves up. And when your dog lounges in the house and their relaxed down is in a Sphinx down, like the female that my daughter's got, her relaxed down is a Sphinx down.
Oh,
Then you
wow.
must know that the dog's body is nice. So I always look at her when she's in a Sphinx down, and if anything is just slightly off, we investigate because that's her down. So
Yeah, right.
when your dog is sitting sloppy, yes, you can easily, it's an easy fix. It takes a little bit of work, it takes about 5-10 minutes of exercises, a few days a week, and you are awesome. Of course, if the dog is still young and a puppy, it's little muscles. They don't have those big, strong muscles to hold themselves up. But if the dog is sat from a puppy and now it's an adult, well, there's a little bit of more conditioning, a little bit of muscle memory that's got to go into it, etc. But you can easily square them up.
Yeah. I used to do yoga twice a week, and after I'd been doing it for a few months, I could totally feel my posture was so much better than what it is now. Slouch on the computer all day. Silky says she takes video of her dog, Frida, on her walks. Brilliant. Yeah, it's good. And just Nicole, and yeah, I've got an Axel therapy mat too. Matt, I think she means. For warm-ups and cool-downs. I mean, I like to use it like when my girl fractured her femur for getting the blood circulation and oxygenation into the break, because obviously she's going to be, a bit tense, but not, so I used it a lot. But yeah, for warm-up and cool-down, what do you think?
I don't have an Axel therapy mat, but you say if it works and gets a blood flow, that's exactly what you're looking for in a cool-down, is for that. What happens is the body's blood is pumping, and that's how the heart's going. And now suddenly you stop, but the heart's still going. But the muscles are not helping the blood to circulate because the muscles are now relaxing and the heart's still going. So you want that the muscles to pump still and slow down with the heart. So you're getting the lactic acid flowing through and not accumulating in the muscles that are just now, they've stopped working because the dog's relaxing or lying down and the heart is still going. You want to at least still warm up the dog or cool down the dog through walking, trotting, and then bringing them down to a walk, and to get the breathing more regulated. That's the most important, just to get those muscles working and to get the lactic acids out of the muscles, because it lowers the intensity of that post-training muscle tenderness. So you want to just get that, the movement of the dog is important. So if you've been training, don't just rely on the mat for the cool down. the movement is really important. Those mats are really awesome when it comes to the therapy, because the dogs actually can't move and it's a little bit more sore, so that helps the dogs along. But if your dog is healthy, don't not cool down your dog and just put them in the mat in the car or wherever they may be. Just move them a little bit. That movement, nothing replaces that movement. A lot of people say, I say there's magic in movement, and a lot of people say the medicine is in the movement. So just move your dog a little bit. They'll be better off for it.
And I mean, that applies to seniors as well. If you see whether human or dogs, you know, the less you move, the more likely you're going to be jammed up, I guess.
100%.
Yeah.
I saw a very, very interesting thing, because I've had my knee replaced, so I know what it's like to have tight muscles and you got to bring them up to strength. I know. And I saw a very nice quote from a fitness person that says, you will always have just enough strength to get your dog or your body better. So just move your body and it gets better. You will always have just enough strength. Same with your dog. If they've been injured, they will always have just enough strength to get them going and get their bodies better.
That's good. Yeah. And so Nicole just said she does walk for 10 minutes beforehand, but then she thought the mat might be an added benefit. Sorry. And then she said, walk for 10 minutes after low coursing before going on the mat. Yeah. Brilliant.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah, cool. All right. Wow. Well, that was a really good hour's worth. Thank you so much, Angela. I don't know if we want to take any more questions. If anybody wants to quickly send, have you got time for another one?
Of course. If we can help as many people as we can.
Sure. So I'll just see who this is. We've got a couple more coming through. So Karen says, do you ever find there is something a dog just won't do? Not sure what that means, but do you mean exercise-wise?
Yes. So even if there's even exercise-wise, so what will happen is, if you're doing a set of exercises and your dog doesn't want to do that anymore and offers a different behavior, it's a sign of fatigue. The dog's tired. It can't do the necessary exercise and wants to change, but still wants to please you because it knows, well, this got me a treat too, so let me try it. If your dog is offering different behaviors in exercises, listen to them, especially if you're doing lots of fall back downs and you're working the back legs with some other exercises. And in my program, there's videos of my dog with the 1 weaker leg, and you see that leg shaking a little bit. Just respect what the dog is saying to you, and then either stop, give them a little bit of a break, and see if they'll do it again later on. I've also seen a dog that absolutely refused to rock back sit. It can tuck sit, no problem. So it's sitting, brings its back legs underneath the body, but to sit back on its back legs like a puppy, it refused completely. And what we found out is that it actually had an injury in the spine. It needed a small surgery to release a nerve. And there you go. So if a dog is refusing something point blank, and dogs really refuse, always investigate.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, unfortunately, if you're heading towards a trial and you're like, I have to get this exercise done, so it's, schmick for the trial, it's really easy to overlook your dog. So basically saying, look, I can't do this right now. It's like really sore, whatever. They're trying to tell you something, but yeah.
Well, that's exactly how my dog, I found my dog's injury is that she refused to jump. She refused it completely. And she wasn't being lazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Tamara says, my working border collie has a massive injury to her knee. I'm sorry about that. She flexed beyond use one of her cruciate ligaments, the one for which she can't have TPLO surgery. She also hurt her left hip and lower back. I don't know how to say that.
It's probably eosoas.
In my country of residence, they don't deal with working dogs. We have gone through nearly 2 years of post-surgery, and rather rehab, no discharged, but she still suffers. Is there anything you can advise me to do to keep her hurting? I failed to explain. Sorry. Sometimes the whole thing doesn't come through, so I'll just here we are. I'll just put it in like that. I don't know. Sometimes StreamYard is rather funny. Just bear with me. I failed to explain the way Collie herds to her team. The issue is that time to time she takes the wrong stride. If she takes the wrong stride on the affected side left, she isn't able to square her flank, and also it causes a cut-in, which isn't desirable. We are doing warm-ups, cool-downs, and exercises, but this issue was dismissed from her team because of her lack of understanding, but it is crucial for her success on trial field. I am not explaining, but would appreciate your kind response on how to fix the stride.
Okay, so that's like a huge question, huge. But many times, if your dog has a knee injury, and then it's she's got a hip issue and there's an iliopsoas. So all of these things are related. So I think I mentioned before, like your knee is a lever joint. It moves back and forth like this. With the hip it moves in all directions. And if there's something wrong with the hip or an iliopsoas, which is part of that whole pelvic inside of the dog, then the knee has got to do more things. It's got to now, instead of the hip supporting the pelvis, the hip can't as much, and so these movements are now placed on the knee. Same as with people, and so the knee then will go. But many times we find that wasn't the original cause of the injury, and here we find that her hip was also not so nice, and the iliopsoas was not so nice. So sometimes if there's a problem in the hip, the iliopsoas has to work a lot more, and so the ilios, because it's overworking and doing more than what it can, it has an injury. And you need to address the original cause. Sometimes it's a problem in the spine, and because the spine can't hold itself together, these iliopsoas and the hip now has to work harder, and so there's a domino effect of injuries in the dog. We need to find out what was the original problem and sort that out first. And you don't want to just put a plaster on. So what's happening? The knee is not the original issue. The knee is a consequence of yeah. So sort out the various or the source of the problem and then strengthen the dog. So with the dog with all of these problems, definitely after you've been to physio and they've done all that they can do, a low impact, slowly getting the body stronger and balanced again will be the thing. So the dog has got a knee problem, a ligament is injured from what I can see, and they can't have a TPLO surgery, so that knee is unstable. The only thing that knee has got to rely on now is all the muscles strapping the knee. So all of those tendons that strap around the knee that go up into the thigh of the dog, that's all the dog has got. So you strengthen the leg muscles, and how it works is muscles get strong and then the tendons get strong. Tendons don't strengthen at the same speed as the muscles. So first the muscles get strong, that strength transfers through to the tendons, they strap the knee, and then only the ligaments can start to repair and get stronger. I say this depending on what's wrong with the ligament. But ligaments take a long time to repair. Even with humans, they don't have their own blood supply because they're inside a joint, and so they don't get nutrients from blood to help repair, and they just take that much longer. So in humans, ligaments take a minimum of 6 months. You'll see in the injury PDF that the
freebie gift.
Yeah, the freebie gift. And so it takes a long time to repair. And during that time, you can strengthen and look after that leg, look after the iliopsoas, because the iliopsoas starts in the vertebra after the ribs, so the loin part of the vertebra. It attaches to all of those vertebrae, and then it comes all the way in onto the inside of the pelvis. There's another muscle that it joins. from the inside of stuck onto the inside of the pelvis, comes all the way down on the inside of the groin and attaches to the top of the femur. So if this is the hip joint, it attaches over here at the top of the femur. So it comes over the hip, inside the pelvis, all up along the spine. It's the only muscle that attaches the spine to the leg. So it's a really important muscle, and it is actually the fillet of, if you know steak, it's a whole tail of fillet, that is your iliopsoas.
Right.
So it's a big muscle, it's an important muscle, and those muscles really need to be strengthened to support that lower part of the spine, the pelvis, and the top of the leg around the joint. So all of those areas, if all of those areas have got a problem, then all of those areas need to be addressed. Low impact, safe for your dog to do. First, get permission from a physio or a rehab specialist with your dog, and then low impact exercises just to strengthen all of those muscles and tendons around the joint.
Yeah. I'm not sure who wrote this, but they said thank you so much. It's been amazing. Someone else says, thank you so much. No, who said this? Oh, that's mine. That was me. Okay. Spot on, the surgeon only focused on the knee. That's really interesting. Yeah. You're sitting across the other side of the world saying, no, it's not the knee, it's the, something else. And
it could be, yes.
Yeah, it could be, yeah. And the surgeon focused on the knee and didn't trust me that there is an issue with the hip and thing that I can't pronounce.
It's a iliopsoas. It's just a spelling typo, but iliopsoas muscle.
Right. Knee has been surgically fixed. She's balanced now, but issue is with the stride, not lining her legs front and left properly. Thank you. Great answer and advice. And somebody else, Tamara, says, okay, same person, Tamara. Best explanation, much better than I ever got in the last 2 years. There you go, Tamara.
It's important to understand. That's why otherwise.
Totally. Yeah.
Exactly that.
So maybe, Tamara, you need to get onto Angela's website. She does work remotely, so maybe she can help you with this problem.
Oh, yeah. If there's any questions, please send me a message, and I'm happy to answer anything, concerns about your dog, in a way that you understand, because you need to understand what's happening with your dog. I can explain and carry on, but if you don't understand, what is the point?
Yeah. That's nothing worse than going to a doctor or a vet and they're like, yeah, blah, 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 and you're like, can you just speak to me in plain English, please?
Pretend I'm 5.
Yeah, just speak to me like I'm in kindergarten and we'll be sweet. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Very
Angela,
important.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you're a wealth of information. And I just really appreciate you spending some time coming on here and chatting to us and answering all these questions.
You are most welcome. I've absolutely enjoyed myself. I'm absolutely enjoying listening to all your other guys and your guests on this Decoding the K9. It's been a really awesome experience, and thank you so much for this initiative. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. See you.
Cheers now.